Sure. No, I didn't. I was interested in the human side of nature and it fascinated me when I was a child and continues to do so. Also, in high school, I was originally going to be a lawyer, but my mother thought I wouldn't be very good because I could never win an argument against her. So I decided to be a congressman. I entered the City College of New York. There, I took a chemistry class and I loved it. I decided to go into a science major. I began thinking about going into medicine because I really wanted to help out humankind. I was not going to be a doctor, but a medical researcher. I attended New York University School of Medicine. There were many moments that in school that really shaped my career. One of them was when I was in class. The professor said you could only create an inactivated bacteria vaccine, not an inactivated virus in a vaccine. He said that you can only create a live viral vaccine in which you have to weaken the virus. This is very dangerous because one could contract the disease from the vaccine. However, I was skeptical about this info. That moment inspired me to prove the thinking wrong and create the first inactivated polio virus vaccine. Sure, vaccines prevent diseases, whether bacterial or viral, but they do not cure diseases. Vaccines do not cause disease but invoke an immune response which produce antibodies. Antibodies are proteins that help the immune system identify and destroy foreign substances. Bacteria vaccines can contain inactivated bacteria because bacteria are living. The reason back then that inactivated viral vaccines were not possible to create because viruses are not living. I proved them wrong eventually, though. Well, my first opportunity as a medical researcher was when I assisted a chemistry professor named Dr. Keith Kanan, who gave me the opportunity to work at his lab for 1 year. While I was there, we studied the strep bacteria. Dr. Kanan wanted to make a vaccine for the strep bacteria. To do so, large amounts of the strep had to be cultured. I discovered a new way of getting these large amounts of bacteria and avoiding the long, tedious conventional method to do this. I discovered that if you add the chemical calcium phosphate to a culture, you produce pure strep germ. I even wrote a paper with my new method. This really had an impact on my life because this was the first point in my life where I made a discovery and started the path to the polio vaccine. Yes, indeed, I created the flu vaccine. I created the flu vaccine with probably the most influential person in my career. His name was Dr. Thomas Francis. It was my final year of medical school. I learned about Dr. Francis and how he was trying to create an inactivated form of the flu virus. So I became interested in the vaccine. I graduated and then researched the influenza virus with Dr. Francis because the influenza pandemic was occurring with the armed forces. While after a while, we both managed to finally create a influenza vaccine using eggs. It proved successful while testing. The influenza it finally gave me a name in the virology community. I got a research job at the University of Pittsburgh where I started researching the polio virus and try making the famous polio virus vaccine. I received funding from the NFIP, National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, to do my research. I had I had to sequence each strand of the polio virus into categories of the polio disease, type 1, type 2, or type 3. After that, we could make the polio vaccine. I first cultured the virus in a human kidney tissue, and then I treated the virus with a chemical called formaldehyde, which inactivates the virus. In the field trial, our lab could not make enough, so we hired pharmaceutical companies to help out producing the vaccine. My team and I first tested it on monkeys. It turned out to be a success, so we moved on to test on humans. We then went to a hospital with polio-stricken kids and healthy kids. We found the strong antibodies in the kids' blood, and then we tested the vaccine on 600 children in Pittsburgh area, and then 4,000 kids in the Pittsburgh area, and then we expanded to be the largest field trial to take over 1.8 million children to participate. We found that it was 65% effective against type 1 polio, 100% effective against type 2, and 96% effective against type 3. Overall, it was deemed a success. We announced these results on April 12, 1955. My mentor, Dr. Francis, announced it. The public became very generous and enthusiastic after the announcement. When my family and I came home, we were met by hundreds of citizens praising my work. Over the days, I received many gifts and note cards. These announcements really changed my life, and I made a major contribution to society who had been living under the wrath of polio, and I felt proud that I could save so many lives. I endured a major setback in one of the laboratories that I licensed to create my vaccine. The lab's name was Cutter Laboratories. They had incorrectly manufactured the polio vaccine, and in result there, I was the live polio virus in the vaccine. About 220,000 children were infected, and my vaccine started being used less, and cases of polio increased. I want people to remember me as a man who helped to make a difference in many children's lives, saving them from the wrath of polio.